Okay, so let's finish up our conversation about all things affirmations. This one will probably be a little bit more extensive even than the last part. I have some quotes I want to go over, a lot of different techniques I want to go over, and just diving deep into it. So let's get into all the different techniques that you can use to affirm. Or sometimes a better word to use for affirmations as a technique is autosuggestion. Let's look at the definition of autosuggestion as well. Autosuggestion is the process by which a person induces self-acceptance of an opinion, belief, or plan of action. Self-suggestion, as distinguished from suggestion coming from another, especially in hypnotism. Autosuggestion is characteristic of certain mental conditions in which expectant belief tends to produce disturbance of function of one or more organs. Hypnosis induced by oneself. Things that you tell yourself or methods that you use in order to induce or bring about an altered state of being. Obviously, in this context, to a positive end. First of all, I just want to say that it's not necessary to do any or all of these techniques. Choose what best suits your current needs, your willingness to participate in whatever the technique is, or to actually use the method and enjoy using the method, and go based off of your current state of consciousness. So if you are in that very low vibrational state, then maybe it's not the day to just make a firm decision and have a lot of conviction and just know that it's done and then to go prancing through a field of flowers. Maybe it just doesn't feel all that good that day. Maybe a different technique will be more beneficial. Maybe a little extra intentional focus on your desire will be more beneficial for you. So understand that doesn't mean that you're bad at manifesting, or that it's always going to be that way, or it's always going to take a lot of effort or a lot of discipline or determination in order to manifest the thing that you want. It's just listening to yourself and giving yourself what you need at the time. Remember, the better that it actually feels emotionally for you to do this thing, first of all, the more you're going to actually want to do it and be able to keep up with the technique long enough to see your desired result. And second, you're actually going to get the results a lot easier, a lot faster, and a lot more effortlessly, regardless of the actual effort of the technique. If it feels better to you, it's going to have a more positive impact. Let's just dive into the meat and potatoes of this right off the bat. Robotic affirmations. Yes, we are revisiting the topic of robotic affirmations. If you have no knowledge of what robotic affirming is at all, it's just repeating a certain selected phrase without feeling, kind of mindlessly, for a certain period of time or a certain number of repetitions. It does not matter how you word the affirmation. It does not matter what you say or what the desire is. It just matters that it implies what you want. The sole intention of this is to manifest through subconscious reprogramming, through the repetition of it, in order to change the way you think, change your expectations and your assumptions about your reality to have a different outcome. It is a results-oriented technique, robotic affirming, which is not good or bad, it's just a choice. But I will say that you can do both. You can get results and feel good, and I promise you, the better you feel, the better your results will be. For a while, this was a touchy subject for me. Seriously, I had a lot of back and forth with robotic affirmations. And I think I mentioned before, because when I first started out on this journey, as many people do, that's what I was told. Affirm, affirm, affirm. Just robotically affirm the same thing over and over and you will get the result. And I found that with a lot of different things that I tried robotic affirmations with, I did get results, and I did get them very quickly. But with some things, especially the things that had higher levels of importance to me, I was not able to maintain the results of the things that were manifested so quickly because I had not prepared myself energetically. I wasn't fully the identity that was able to accept having that experience be manifested. I wanted the thing, but I wasn't ready to accept it, actually. It just sounded like a good thing to have, but my state of being wasn't in alignment with actually being able to stabilize and maintain the thing. So it actually did a lot more of a detriment to me than a service to me, because I was not coming from the understanding of identity comes first, state of being comes first. And then if you want to affirm till you're blue in the face, go ahead. Whatever results you get from that are actually going to feel good. The process of it is actually going to feel good, and those results are going to be sustainable. But if it comes from a place of desperation or obsession or focus on the actual lack of the thing that you think you are obligated to affirm in order to get the thing to come to you, then are you more focused on being the person who already has it, Or are you more focused on trying to become a person that has it, or trying to get the thing to come to you, or trying to make something work that you're not believing is going to work, or you're not believing you're actually capable of having? That's an important distinction to make, because it will save you a lot of time and a lot of mental stress and strain, and honestly, self-doubt and self-loathing when everybody's telling you, oh, just affirm, just robotically affirm, and you're trying it and your results are not like everybody else's, and you're wondering why you actually feel worse robotically affirming than you felt before you even learned about manifestation. Because your insistence on affirming something to be true that you are not in the state of being, of knowing that it's true, actually brings you to a further level of separation from the state that you want to be in, because you are so focused on denying yourself of already having the thing that you think that you have to work really hard in order to get the thing. So if it's not a process that actually feels good to you in the process of doing it, or you feel like you're doing a means to an end, things can get a little dicey. This is why my thoughts have changed, because now coming to a state of awareness of knowing that your identity comes first, and then you can do whatever you want and decide that whatever I do works, whatever feels good right now is going to work. It doesn't really matter what I do because I'm going to get whatever I want anyways. You can robotically affirm as much as you want if that actually just is enjoyable to you, or gets you fast results, or is just what you feel like you have the mental capacity for at this time. Still, to me, it's not an enjoyable practice, so I don't do it very often, but I know for some people it is, and there is nothing inherently wrong with it, but there might be a shift in perspective that needs to happen before you're actually going to get the results that you really actually desire. Having said that, I'm going to teach you to robotically affirm the right way. Yes, I'm going to hold your hand today. First of all, you have to know that there's no set number of affirmations that is sure to manifest a thing. You could affirm once and it could manifest. You could affirm 10 times today, 10 times tomorrow, 10 times the day after that, and it could manifest. Or you could affirm all day today and it could manifest tomorrow. There's no set number of affirmations. It could be based on your state of being, based on your resistance to the thing, based on how close you are in vibrational proximity to that thing already being a reality, or to the reality where that is already manifested. It's going to change the number of affirmations that you say. You don't need to do a clicker. You don't need an app to figure out how many times you need to affirm. If you're going to robotically affirm, my suggestion would be have limitations so that you're not going overboard. Have those times, set it out in advance so that you have some kind of structure for yourself, so that you don't have a feeling of, did I do enough or did I not do enough? Those guidelines are also completely up to you to decide. But once that's handled, once you have that baseline for yourself, anything that you want to do on top of that is totally okay for you to do. And it's not coming from a feeling of obligation, like if I don't do more, then something bad is gonna happen, or it's not gonna manifest, or the more affirmations I say, the more quickly it's gonna manifest. It's not necessarily the truth. If you believe that that's the truth, that the more you affirm, the quicker it manifests, then cool if that belief works for you, but you're also building a belief that you have to affirm more in order for something to manifest faster, which I would honestly advise against. But I do understand that some people do genuinely enjoy affirming all day long, or at least a majority of their day, or when they just have a free spare moment, they prefer to use that time to affirm. It's not really bad to be affirming all the time in that sense. You should be thinking thoughts that are in alignment, thoughts that feel like truth, thoughts that feel good, or better than the unconscious program thoughts. If you're able to be aware enough to catch yourself thinking those thoughts, it's better if you think the thoughts that feel better, or that are gonna have a better outcome for you. And for some people, robotic affirmations are the only thing that keeps their negative thoughts out, or they think that that's what they have to do in order to keep negative thoughts out. Remember, thoughts are just things. They don't really actually mean anything or have any implication that you do not give to them. So if you think that it is necessary to robotically affirm in order to kind of override or overlap negative thoughts, it's not truly necessary, but it might be what is most available to you wherever you are in your state of consciousness. You might be in a state where that's what's going to take you to the level where you're able to be a little more lenient, a little bit more free flowing with your thoughts, and you're affirming. But until you get there, if robotic affirmations are the stepping stone for you to get there, then you absolutely should do that, rather than to just sit and wallow in victim misery land and be, a menace to yourself in your own mind. So do what you will. Also, when you're beginning this journey, I do understand how robotic affirmations can help you build that level of discipline, keeping your mind on a certain thought track and honing in your focus, being able to focus on a thought enough for it to be something that is manifested. Because if you just think about it in passing and you never really think about it again, but there wasn't really much resonance with it, like there was no conviction behind it. It was kind of just like a passing thought. You really could do with it, you could do without it, then you could do with it and you could do without it, and it might manifest and it might not. But then if you have a kind of willy-nilly thought like that, and then on top of it you have 50,000 thoughts that are in opposition to that thought, then obviously the dominance of those thoughts, because they're in such an excess of quantity, are going to override the willy-nilly thought because it didn't have any conviction behind it. So in that case, you would want to up the quantity of the affirmations that are actually in alignment with what you want to manifest. So robotically affirming could help you keep your focus and your attention on where you actually want it to be, and not on back and forth, and not having all this hot and cold silliness. Robotic affirmations can get you really fast results, as can all of these methods if you believe that they can. So if you have a belief that robotic affirmations work for you and that they work very fast, then that's exactly what will happen for you. And that's a great belief to have, because if you're going to put any amount of time into doing anything, then at least it better benefit you in some shape, form, or fashion, right? It can also lead to elevated emotions and feelings of empowerment. Even though robotic affirming is inherently without emotion, it's mindless affirming. When you do it from the grounded perspective of knowing who you are and knowing that you actually have the ability to create your reality, especially if this is kind of your introduction into reality creation, into spirituality, into manifestation in general, you can actually see quick, tangible results in your reality that you are actually having an effect on your world. So it's not necessarily a bad place to start. I just would not recommend that you stay there forever, not because it's a bad thing, but just because it's not necessary, and there are levels above robotic affirming that you can evolve to, and that will make your experience a little bit more effortless, a little bit more seamless, and feel a little bit better than just saying the same thing over and over and not really having any internal backing behind that, no conviction, no good feeling that can be attached to it, and automatically make sure that whatever that you're manifesting is going to feel good and is going to match your state of being, because it's going to do that anyways. Whatever you're manifesting is going to match your state of being, or your state of being is going to override whatever you're manifesting, either way you want to think about it. So eventually you're probably going to want to get to the place, if you're not already there. Now, if you're already there and you are super confident and you just know what you want, you know what you can have, and you want to robotically affirm and it makes no difference to you, then keep doing it. If you love it, if you like it, I love it, girl, boy, whoever you are. If you like it, I love it. Keep doing it for as long as it feels good for you. But when you're ready to evolve, if you're ready to evolve, there are different methods of autosuggestion that you could use that might be a little bit more seamless, a little bit more effortless, and might free up some mental space to think about some other things and evolve in some different ways. Just a suggestion. Now I will be devil's advocate. Now I will tell you why some people don't get results with it and why it could maybe not be serving your highest interest. The reason that I don't often suggest robotic affirmations as even a starting point is because it can very easily lead you to obsession and exhaustion, especially if you don't have a baseline understanding of reality creation, of the nature of reality, of who you are, of the fact that you are God, that you are source and cause of your reality, and you're just in that state of lacking something and wanting something, feeling like things are outside of you, and you're in more of a chasing mode. You feel like you have to force or manipulate or coerce the things that you want to be attracted to you or to come into your reality, instead of you being the one who's out picturing everything you see and understanding that everything that you experience is a result of your state of being. Your state of awareness is what manifests. So when you don't understand that and you just go straight to robotically affirming and you're shoving all of those things down, all of the past, all of the trauma, all of the stories, and you are overriding it, not understanding that overriding is an option, but it has to be done with a level of prior understanding of why you're capable of doing that and the implications of doing that before you just go all willy-nilly. It can lead to manifestation burnout, where you feel like you're disempowered, that you can't manifest, that manifestation is not real or it's not working because you're not getting the results that you want. Not understanding that it's not to do with the technique. It's not that robotic affirmations don't work or that any technique doesn't work, but it's your own feeling of disempowerment, your own feelings of lacking control or needing to control something even, that leads you to not getting the results that you want. You feel like there's somebody outside of you or something outside of you that you're putting on a pedestal, whether it be a person who's telling you to do something, a technique, a result that you want to get. You're putting it on a pedestal and seeing that thing is outside of yourself, and like you have to go chasing for it, or you have to go efforting for it or working for it, or else you don't have permission to have that thing. It can also lead to a lot of wavering if you're robotically affirming and covering up negative thoughts, and there's no sense of empowerment behind that. There's no recognition that the negative thought is not real, that it's not relevant, that you don't have to believe into that thought, and you're going back and forth from, okay, I'm affirming, okay, now I'm spiraling, affirming, spiraling. And then you're like, why is the 3D gone to shit? Well, hot and cold behavior internally is going to lead to hot and cold behavior externally. There was not a dominance in either respect. There was not a dominance in your quantity of thoughts because you were affirming just as much as you were wavering. You were believing into the positive thought just as much as you were believing into the negative thought. And also, there was no dominance in the quality of your affirmation because since you were robotically affirming, there was no conviction behind what you were saying if you were in that disempowered state. That's why sometimes, not the most beneficial route to take. Sometimes you do maybe want to consider stepping back, looking into the negative thought, understanding and disempowering the thought instead of letting the thought disempower you, knowing that it no longer has any relevance or meaning to your story. So then you are freed up to use your manifestation potential in the ways that you see fit. Also, just general anxiety, waiting for things to manifest, wondering if you've done enough affirmations for it to manifest, just being again in that state of lacking something and being separate from something can also be a pitfall of robotic affirmations. Low mood, depression, obsession, even just a general disappointment in yourself, in life, in your capabilities, because again, you're buying into that idea that something is happening outside of you that was not first happening internally. You're thinking that you're subject to the external reality and that the external reality is not created based off of your state of being. So at the base of all of this, at the base of all of the pitfalls of robotic affirmation is the misconception that you are separate from your desire. When you choose not to identify with the thought, but continue to focus on the thought, you're not actually focusing on the desire being fulfilled, you are focusing on your lack of the desire, on being the version of yourself who it is not done yet for, who it is not yet done for. You're focused on being the version of yourself who doesn't have it. So change that thinking. Know that you're the boss, you're the creator, you are God, you are a source of your reality. And if you choose that this is your method, this is the way that you want to manifest, choose that it works, choose that it's easy, choose that it's effortless for you, if that's what feels effortless for you, and go on about your way. But if you're not going to do it with those baseline assumptions, if you're not going to integrate those first, don't even go into the robotic affirmations because you're just going to waste your time, stir yourself up into a frenzy of disempowerment and wondering why nothing works and thinking, woe is me, I'm a victim, this is bullshit. When in reality, you're the one bullshitting yourself. I'm telling you this from personal experience because I love you, okay? Please understand. So let's recap robotic affirming and how to actually make robotic affirming work for you for sure. So choose specific times to affirm, whether it's before you go to bed and when you wake up, whether it's in the shower, whether it's when you're driving, doing chores, working out, or just doing mindless tasks. Decide that when you have that free time, instead of letting your mind wander or watching a TV show or scrolling on TikTok, that you are going to take that time to affirm. That is going to be your set affirmation time. Outside of those times, you're not going to force yourself to robotically affirm. Only do it when you feel called. Only do it when it feels good to do the technique, when it doesn't feel like a have to, but it feels like a want to. This will eliminate the overworking, burnout type of situation that you could find yourself in, and it will fulfill your need of accomplishment, your need to check things off the manifestation to-do list. You know that you have your times. In your times, you did your affirmations. You decide that in those times, whatever you did, no matter how many times you affirmed it, that was enough. And that outside of those times, you're not going to force yourself to do anything more. And if that changes in the future and you've decided that this is too much, it's taking up too much of my time, too much of my mental space, or I'm getting obsessive or overly focused on this in a negative sense, then you're going to back off a little bit. If you're using robotic affirming and you're manifesting multiple desires at once, I would suggest you go for more general statements that feel good and that embody and imply all of the things that you want to manifest, rather than having a long drawn out list of affirmations that you're like cycling through and things that you have to remember. It's just the less mental load, the less burden that you could put on your mind and on the technique in general, the less effort that you can put forth, the least amount of effort you can use. I would suggest that you do that to the best of your ability, just to keep things light, to keep things easy, to keep it maintainable for you, and to actually enjoy the experience, because you should not be miserable. You should not be miserable to be manifesting any sort of result, because I guarantee you, whatever you manifest from that state of misery will not make you feel any less miserable than you already do. That is something that you need to shift internally first. Just remember, if you are allocating these times to affirm, when you're not robotically affirming, that does not mean you become passive with the old story. It doesn't mean you just let the thoughts go by willy-nilly unless you know that the thoughts are bullshit automatically. Your bullshit detector needs to be on high alert if you are not maintaining a mental diet or if you are not currently affirming. Don't just let your thoughts wander wherever they want to, because they're not just going to go wherever they want to. They're going to go based on that subconscious programming. If the thought does come up, do as we said. Identify the thought as not something that's true. Understand that if it's not true, it's not an affirmation. You can choose to either just let it go or reaffirm who you are, but don't just let the thought fester and be bad thought, cover up the bad thought. Understand that, big scary thought. Look at the thought, be like, actually, you're not big or scary and you actually don't mean anything, so you can go away. Now I can bring back my new belief. Not that I'm using my new belief to cover it up or make something go away, but I'm understanding and recognizing that the old belief is not actually true, and my new belief not only feels better, but is more beneficial for me to focus on. I'm gonna close off robotic affirmations there. That's my current viewpoint on it, my current best practices, if you will, if it's going to be the method that you choose. Now let's move on to the quotes that I've compiled. There was something that sparked this. I saw, not going to name names because it's not relevant, and I don't think what this person did was necessarily bad. I just think that when I read the same passage from Neville that they were reading, I had a very different interpretation of it. But I do think that Neville's words can easily be taken out of context. So I have the Neville Goddard Complete Reader as an ebook. So I just did a keyword search for the word repetition, found some interesting quotes. So yes, Neville said all these things, obviously repeat, live in the wish fulfilled. He said do sats, but we know that sats is not a requirement. We know that robotic affirmations are not a requirement. None of these things are actually requirements, and even Neville's word is not Bible. But seeing Neville's work used to promote robotic affirmations automatically sat wrong with me, because I was like, hold on, I've read his work. I'm not the most studied disciple of Neville, if you will. I'm sure there are people who have much more extensive knowledge of Neville Goddard than me, but automatically I was just off rip like, something's a little bit fishy. So I said, I will do my own investigation. And I thought that it would be beneficial for us to go over my findings together today. So this is from At Your Command, and it reads, can a man decree a thing and have it come to pass? Most decidedly he can. Man has always decreed that which has appeared in his world, and is today decreeing that which is appearing in his world, and shall continue to do so as long as man is conscious of being man. Not one thing has ever appeared in man's world but what man decreed that it should. This you may deny, but try as you will, you cannot disprove it, for this decreeing is based upon a changeless principle. All right, this is the important part, and we'll key in on this. You do not command things to appear by your words or loud affirmations. Such vain repetition is more often than not confirmation of the opposite. Decreeing is ever done in consciousness. That is, every man is conscious of being that which he has decreed himself to be. The dumb man, without using words, is conscious of being dumb. Therefore, he is decreeing himself to be dumb. A couple things about this. When he says such vain repetition is more often than not confirmation of the opposite, this is what I meant by sometimes when you're robotically affirming and you think that you're focusing on the thought, because we say your focused attention creates, what you're doing is not actually focusing on the thought, the reality that you want to be manifested. You're not actually seeing yourself living in the end. You are trying to convince yourself that you can live in the end, or that you are living in the end, or that you're working towards living in the end. And by doing so with such a level of insistence that it must be this way, or I must change this, or having your focus be so external, is more often than not a confirmation that it's not here yet, that you don't really believe in the reality of your manifestation, that you don't believe in the affirmation, that you haven't decided that's your truth. That's important. And also why I was talking about the babies. You've been manifesting since before your inception. We have to say you've been manifesting since before you were born even, because you had to have manifested yourself into this experience in the first place. Therefore, even as a baby, you were manifesting before you knew human language, before you had a societal concept of thought or normalcy or the human realm in general, physical reality in general. You were still manifesting as a wee babe, okay? You were. So it's akin to what he says about the dumb man, it's kind of rude, Neville. These people are still manifesting. That's still a manifested experience. So, like he says, the dumb man, without thinking, is still conscious of being dumb. Therefore, he manifests a reality of being dumb. So for this next quote, my note was more on robotic affirming and how the imaginal act has to do not with words, but feeling yourself to be something. This was the important distinction that I had to make between just the vain repetition and using repetition, but also seeing yourself to be something, feeling yourself to be something, being identified with the thought, and then focusing on the thought. So it says, not only are all things made by God, all things are made of God. All are the offspring of God. God is one. Things or divisions are the projections of the one. God being one, he must command himself to be the seeming other, for there is no other. The absolute cannot contain something within itself that is not itself. If it did, then it would not be absolute, the only one. Commands to be effective must be to oneself. I am that I am is the only effective command. I am the Lord, and beside me there is no one else. You cannot command that which is not. As there is no other, you must command yourself to be that which you would have appear. Let me clarify what I mean by effective command. You do not repeat like a parrot the statement, I am that I am. Such vain repetition would be both stupid and fruitless. It is not the words that make it effective, it is the consciousness of being the thing which makes it effective. When you say, I am, you are declaring yourself to be. The word that in the statement, I am that I am, indicates that which you would be. The second I am in the quotation is the cry of victory. This whole drama takes place inwardly with or without the use of words. Be still and know that you are. The stillness is attained by observing the observer. Repeat quietly but with feeling, I am, until you have lost all consciousness of the world and know yourself just as being. Awareness, the knowing that you are, is Almighty God, I am. After this is accomplished, define yourself as that which you desire to be by feeling yourself to be the thing desired. I am that. This understanding that you are the thing desired will cause a thrill to course through your entire being. When the conviction is established and you really believe that you are that which you desire to be, then the second I am is uttered as a cry of victory. This mystical revelation of Moses can be seen as 3 distinct steps. I am free, I really am. And that's from Your Faith is Your Fortune, chapter 6, I am he. This one is important because Neville just said flat out not to repeat your affirmations like a parrot and to go into the feeling of being the thing and the conviction of knowing that the thing is already done. So here's my thing. If you want to robotically affirm, go ahead. Robotic affirmations work. They do. They will work for you. But to say that Neville was a proponent of robotic affirmation or that he advised it even is so far from the truth that I see in these words. But I don't know. That's why I'm reading the quotes extensively so that we can all be the judge of whether or not you think that was the intention behind what he said. So I also found a quote that I feel like completely summarizes Neville's views on repetition and on affirmations. It says, when the feeling of reality is yours, for the moment at least, you are mentally impotent. The desire to repeat the act of prayer is lost, having been replaced by the feeling of accomplishment. Important. You cannot persist in wanting what you already have. If you assume you are what you desire to be to the point of ecstasy, you no longer want it. Your imaginal act is as much a creative act as a physical one, wherein man halts, shrinks, and is blessed. For as man creates his own likeness, so does your imaginal act transform itself into the likeness of your assumption. If, however, you do not reach the point of satisfaction, repeat the action over and over again until you feel as though you touched it and virtue went out of you. This is the one that I think people take and run with because of this last sentence here. If, however, you do not reach the point of satisfaction, repeat the action over and over again until you feel as though you touched it and virtue went out of you. So I want to focus on that part because what Neville is saying is once you feel like your affirmations worked, once you believe it to be true, once you're sitting in the state of the wish fulfilled, once you know it's done, there's no point in doing anything else. What else would you be doing if it was done, right? So then he says, let it go. Be in the Sabbath state. Go and be fruitful and merry. Okay? But if you don't reach the point of satisfaction, repeat the action over and over again until you feel as though you touched it. By touched it, Neville means that you felt the reality of the wish fulfilled. Once you feel it to be true, you've touched it. And the virtue going out of you means that the affirmation itself, the technique itself, has lost its usefulness. So the virtue has gone out of you means it's no longer something that's beneficial. It's no longer relevant to you to continue to repeat something that you already know to be obviously true. So what Neville is saying is repeat the phrase until it becomes natural to you, until it becomes normalized. Once you reach that point, once you get to the point of, okay, it's done, that's when you, in a sense, let it go. You let go of the efforting, the techniques, the trying to reach somewhere because you're already there, right? In all other mentions of repetition that I found in Neville's work, it's emphasized to repeat with feeling, mostly contained in an exercise like SATs or doing the lullaby method, like saying thank you before you're going to sleep, feeling into that relief, feeling into the gratitude, feeling into the thankfulness of the thing already being done. And to do so from the conception of already being one with that thing, already being identified with it, not being the chaser, but being the projector, being the cause, being the source. That was my interpretation. Let me know what you think. That's all I have to say for now about robotic affirmations. And that was the most extensive piece of this video. Now we will move on to talking about other methods of autosuggestion that you could use if robotic affirmations are not the choice for you. So let's talk about key point affirming. This is what I like to call it. We talked about this a little bit when we talked about robotic affirmations, but key point affirming is just using those times when your subconscious mind is the most malleable, when it's the most open to suggestion, which is going to be when you're in those drowsier or relaxed states, the state akin to sleep, when you're doing something that's a subconscious activity or that's more relaxing or that doesn't take a lot of mental effort. Those are good times to affirm. Now, when I'm speaking about affirming, I'm talking about just regular affirming with feeling and actually getting into the embodiment of it, getting into feeling like the person who has the thing, thinking like the person who has the thing. And maybe the thoughts in the affirmations are a little bit more pre-planned, but they are very relevant to the state of being that you are intending to manifest. First of all, I want to say that your subconscious mind is always listening. It never turns off. You can choose to affirm at any time, and don't feel like these are the only times when you're in that theta state or when you're in the alpha state, when you're drowsy or when you're more relaxed, that that's the only time that you can affirm. You can be very frantic. You can be in high states of emotion that are quote unquote negative. You could be in states of anxiety, states of anger, states of frustration, and you can still affirm if you feel like that's the most relevant thing for you to do at that time. And that does not mean that your subconscious is not listening. It just means that there might be a little bit more of a barrier to entry. But there are times when your subconscious mind is already primed and willing to be suggestible. Those are those drowsy theta states, like when you're waking up in the morning and before you're going to sleep, that state akin to sleep. And with key point affirming, you're going to choose to affirm at those times. You're going to choose to take the time when your subconscious mind is the most pliable and use it to your benefit, because why not? If you're going to fall asleep thinking about the drama of the day, not revising your day, going over how things went wrong or how things are going to go wrong in the future, that is not a beneficial use of your time. If you're going to be thinking about anything before you go to bed, at least let it be the thing that you actually want to see happen for you. By choosing to intentionally affirm at these times, it's going to become something that's just more automatic for you, that just starts to happen on autopilot. Like before you go to sleep, when you're laying your head, your pretty little head on that pillow, you're just automatically gonna start thinking better feeling thoughts, because it feels good to fall asleep in that state of like, I feel satisfied, I feel like today was a good day, I feel like I have positive expectations for tomorrow, this good thing happened, this good thing happened, this good thing is going to happen, this good thing already happened, da 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 da. You're just going over good feeling thoughts, or just being in gratitude for all the good things that are happening, whether or not you have specific affirmations that you have pre-planned, or you're just doing a more free-flowy form of affirming, of speaking a positive truth over your life. That is a really good time to do it before you go to sleep and when you're waking up, to just automatically prime your brain to be thinking positively at those times, or to be thinking the thoughts that you want to be thinking at those times. Because imagine the difference between waking up on the right side of the bed and waking up on the wrong side of the bed. That is something that you can program yourself to do automatically, to always wake up on the right side of the bed, by waking up and immediately affirming your truth, immediately reminding yourself who you are, immediately going into seeing reality the way that you want to see it, and only seeing your preference and expecting and assuming that things are going to work out the way that you intend them to. Those are always the most important key points for affirmations for me. If you want to ask, well, what's the most important time to affirm? It's like free real estate, that you might as well use it. It's the perfect time to do mental exercise if you're going to do it. It's like you're going to sleep, you're revising the day that you already had, and then you're waking up and you have already set a positive expectation for what is going to happen. you are priming yourself to see things righteously, which means seeing things in alignment with your end, with your wish fulfilled. Other key points or good times to affirm are, like I said, when you're in those more alpha states, which is just a relaxed state of mind, when you're doing things on autopilot, when you're working more on a subconscious level, when you're just doing things that are mindless, instead of just mindlessly affirming or mindlessly thinking about things that aren't really relevant to what you're creating. Intentionally cultivate a good feeling about the things that you're saying. Intentionally choose to embody the state of the person who would be thinking the thoughts that you are affirming. Start to feel like that person, start to see as that person. And while you're affirming in this way, regardless of the affirmations that you chose, you are going to start automatically getting those mental pictures and those feelings and more easily embodying the state that you want to be in, the state that's in alignment with the truth of those affirmations. Make sense? This one is also one of my preferences and one that feels most effortless to me. It's very easy for me to step back into that observer perspective now and just do a mental diet, especially if there's something that is like constantly harping. It's like, oh, you again? Oh, that thought again? Like what are you doing here, buddy? Don't you see the restricted sign? Don't you see that you don't belong here? And it's just like, what is going on? It's like, okay, I'm gonna go on a mental diet. A mental diet pretty much is just following the natural path of thought, letting yourself think whatever it is you're naturally thinking about, and that's fine, but stepping back into that observer role. And when you catch yourself thinking a thought that's out of alignment, which you can easily do by tuning into your emotional body and feeling when a thought that you're thinking actually feels bad or actually has a detrimental effect on your state of being, when you don't feel the same way as you did when you were just thinking about your grocery list or thinking about going to your cousin's t-ball game or whatever it is, when you're just having your natural flow of thoughts and you just feel fine, you're not thinking that much about your state, and then automatically all of a sudden you start to feel really bad, you have to equate that feeling with a thought. And it's not that the thought is necessarily bad, it's your belief and attachment to the thought that made you feel bad. It's not that the thought is attacking you or can have any harmful or negative effect on you, it's that you have a belief that's out of alignment with your true state of being. So by stepping into that observer perspective, by stepping back and looking objectively at your thoughts of what's going on, just monitoring your mental space, you can catch yourself when you're out of alignment and just shift yourself back to where you want to be. And you will know you have shifted back to where you want to be when you go back to feeling like yourself. When you go back to feeling good, when you're feeling in alignment, either you mostly feel neutral about what's happening or you've stepped into a level of positive, elevated emotion, which in the long run is, I would say, going to serve you more than just staying in that neutral point. But obviously from feeling bad, neutral is better. And from feeling neutral, better is better. So as good as you can, but climb up the emotional scale in the time that you need to. And the most important thing is being aware, is seeing the thoughts and catching them rather than letting yourself spiral. Being able to determine, is this thought me or is this thought external? Or is the feeling I'm having because I'm basing my internal reality off of the external reality? Or is it really because this thing is harmful? Is it really because something bad is happening? And if something bad is happening, can I backtrack in my mental diet and see where I was thinking a thought that would have led to this thing manifesting? And if I can't see it, then I need to be a little bit more diligent about focusing on what I'm thinking about, because somewhere in there is a thought that would have led to this thing manifesting. So I'm going to step back into the observer point of view. I'm going to monitor my mind. I'm going to monitor what's going on in here, and we're going to find the thought that does not belong, and we're going to throw it to the wayside, and we are going to skip along our merry way. That's mental diet. And for me, that feels really good, because it's very easy now for me to catch myself being like, do you really want to think that thought? Do you really want to? That's where we're going to go with that? Oh, okay. And then if I say, oh yeah, that's really where I want to go with that, yeah, I'm really just going to be stuck to that thought. That thought actually is important. Maybe actually something bad is going to happen. Yeah, I know circumstances don't matter, but this circumstance, I don't know. And I'm doing my mental diet and I see it and I choose not to shift it. I'm like, okay. And then when I see the results of that thought and I'm looking at my reality like this, and my mental diet's looking at me like this, like, what'd you expect? And then it becomes very easy to track your line of thought in alignment with the things that are manifesting in your reality. And you can see very much so in the same way that you see with robotic affirmations or with any other techniques, the very tangible effect that your mental has on your physical. So pretty much the sole purpose of a mental diet is to be who you are, just to focus on being in fulfillment, on feeling good, on living your life, but to be shifting your line of thinking to be in alignment with the version of yourself that you want to be. To be just embodying the state of already being that person. Pretty much like you took that person's mind, the version of you that you want to be, and just supplanted it into current version of you, body in current version of reality. Knowing that you have that mentality of the version of you living in the reality you want, your external reality must shift to match your internal reality. So that's the point of a mental diet, more naturally shifting your focus to be more in alignment with that fully embodied highest version of you state, rather than having to so consciously pre-plan your thoughts and kind of have this regimen of like learning how to think like this person, and instead just tapping into the energy of that person and just shifting when you feel like it doesn't feel good, when it's out of alignment. You just automatically know that's not a thought that the version of myself living in the reality I want to live in or having the thing that I want to have would think. So I'm not going to think like that. Okay, bye, thought dismissed. And then you just move along. So in that way, you don't really have to pre-plan affirmations, and you don't really necessarily have to focus on anything that you don't see as relevant. Even if it is something that you're manifesting, it doesn't have to take up the majority of your attention, because that's already implied, that's already implicit in your state of being. Because if you feel satisfied, if you feel like the version of yourself for which everything is already done, you're already living in the end, then it doesn't really matter how much you're focusing on a thing that's very obvious to that version of you in the reality where it's already manifested. So another form of autosuggestion or an affirmation technique that you can use is inner conversations. Inner conversations can work a couple different ways, because you can also think about inner conversations as being in alignment with mental diet. If you're thinking about the internal conversations that you're having with yourself, just like the self-talk that you have before you go to sleep. Are you replaying negative scenarios? Are you having internal arguments with people? Are you just like hearing possible negative comments that people can give you? Like, if I do this thing, oh, this person's gonna say this, and okay, what if this thing happens? And then you're doing like the negative what if game with yourself. Is that how your inner conversations are going? Because from that standpoint, you should probably be more on the side of like doing a mental diet. Like, is this inner conversation actually helpful? Would the version of me in the reality that I want to live in be thinking these thoughts? Be entertaining this conversation even actually happening or manifesting? So why would I put my focus there? Why would I be so insistent that this outcome not manifest if I'm already living in the reality where this would never even be a possibility, where it wouldn't even be relevant for my experience at all? You could flip this around and do positive self-talk, positive conversations with yourself, setting up positive expectations for yourself, speaking just positivity over your life in general, just the way that you talk to yourself. For me, this goes along with mental diet, because I do just like talk to myself a lot. Sometimes it feels like I'm channeling in a sense, or speaking as the higher version of myself to myself, like giving myself guidance on what to do. And sometimes it feels like I'm just like making commentary on just what's happening, or I'm just talking to myself, integrating different ideas. I'm just a person who is constantly talking to myself anyways. So if you're going to be constantly talking to yourself, constantly making up scenarios, make sure that whatever story you're telling in mind, whatever inner conversations that you're having with yourself, are positive conversations, instead of having mental arguments with people or trying to flesh out all the worst case scenarios so you know what you're going to say or what you're going to do if this thing happens, or if this person comes at you in this way, or if this person makes this comment, how you're going to like cope with that and handle that, and how you're going to react to that. Instead of going down the worst case scenario spiral and having those kind of inner conversations, have positive inner conversations with people. Like if you have an important meeting, have that meeting first in your mind. Hear that person telling you what you want to hear. Hear yourself speaking with confidence, being able to get all of your words out, being able to say your piece and say it with authority or say it with conviction, and be respected and be heard, and do the things that you need to do and have a positive outcome from that scenario. Play those type of inner conversations. Hearing them have a positive outcome or a positive result would be a good inner conversation to have. Or whether you're manifesting something and you want to hear somebody telling you congratulations, somebody being like, oh my God, I can't believe you did that, or oh my God, you and so look so good together, oh my God, can't believe that you got all this money and that you're doing this and that you're going to this place and that you got a new job, and oh my God, I love your car, what are we going for a spin, da da da. Have those conversations in mind and speak with somebody in that end scene and have them tell you the things that you would want to hear, the things that implied that you got what you wanted. Also remember, if you're having inner conversations, especially negative inner conversations, like if you're arguing with your SP in your mind, or you're arguing with your mom or your boss in your mind and you're replaying these negative scenarios, that thought transmission is a real thing, that you are projecting that reality onto that person and calling forth a version of that person to show up for you in that way. So if you're having an inner conversation with somebody, just be sure that you would actually want to have that conversation with them, because in a sense you are currently having that conversation with them. If you are thinking about them, they can feel it energetically. They could show up as any version of themselves. But if you pre-project what you expect them to do and it's a negative expectation, or you have an assumption that this person is not going to do what you want, and you're trying to combat and figure out what you're going to do in worst case scenario when it comes to this person, then you are giving that person free reign to show up, not giving you what you actually want. So don't brace and try to prepare yourself for having a conversation that you don't actually want to have. Just go ahead and have the conversation that you would want to have with that person in mind, so they can pick up on those signals and that you guys can actually have that conversation, or so that you can get whatever is implied through that conversation to manifest. Mantras. So mantras are pretty much if robotic affirmations had feelings. With a mantra, you choose an affirmation. Usually it's just one focus affirmation, and usually it's pretty short and sweet. Usually it's in a meditation context or more yogic context, which meditation is a part of yoga, but I mean a more physically based yoga practice. But the most important part is you're doing it with the intention of generating an elevated state of emotion. You're really listening to the words, you're slowing down, maybe extending the pauses in between saying your affirmations, and you're really feeling into every word, really feeling into the meaning of the affirmation, really embodying it and internalizing it. You are deeply feeling into that affirmation and being very present with it, being very present with that reality and bringing it very much so into the now. So in a way, you could think of doing something like the lullaby method as doing a mantra meditation, because usually you're just saying something like thank you or everything is wonderful or something like that, and you're just focusing on that and you're building on generating that elevated state of emotion. So maybe it starts off more like a robotic affirmation, maybe it's a little bit more mindless, you're not feeling into it, but through the repetition of it, through slowing down, through feeling into it, you start to generate that emotion. And stay with that affirmation until you start to feel it, until it starts to integrate, until it penetrates your mental and your emotional body. That would be the difference between using an affirmation more like a mantra and using it more like a robotic affirmation. The difference usually is in the feeling state. Next, we have general affirmations. General affirmations are going to be more for the people who are manifesting multiple desires, or for the people who are more just like, I don't really know what I want, just surprise me and just make sure it's good. That's when you want to use a general affirmation, when you just want to be in awe of life and of the law and of infinite intelligence and how truly you can manifest amazing things just through your state of being. General affirmations, like I mentioned, can really cut the workload down. If you have a lot of desires, instead of affirming 10 different affirmations for 10 different aspects of your life, you would find the affirmation that implies all of those things are already done, or you're already in the state of being where those things are taken care of, and you would just affirm the one affirmation generally, or more general affirmations that are in alignment with having all of those things done. Just implies everything. It can also help you eliminate a lot of resistance if you're feeling like focusing on the specific desire is less of a focus on the desire and more of a focus on your lack of the desire, then a general affirmation can be really good. Isn't it wonderful is always good, because isn't it wonderful not only implies you got the thing you want, but it also implies that lots of wonderful things are happening. Just wonderful things are happening all the time. Everything is to your preference, exactly the way you want it to be. I always get what I want no matter what. I get to decide no matter what. Things are always happening in my favor no matter what, no matter what, no matter what, no matter what. That's probably my favorite general affirmation. I love a no matter what. Oh, what about this thing? Nope, you get to have what you want no matter what. No matter what. I also love as a general, more self-concept affirmation, I am God, I am source, I am the only cause, there is no other cause outside of me. Just reminding yourself that you are the chooser, you are the decider. There's nothing happening outside of you that is outside of your control, or that is outside of your will, or that is happening to you without your permission. Everything has to go through you internally. It has to come from you internally. It's just all happening for you and not to you, as I always say. It's good to remind yourself of your role in creation, because from coming from that place of reminding yourself who you are, it becomes a lot easier to affirm, if you want to specifically, for those desires without feeling that level of resistance. Like, oh, I can't have this. I'm separated from this thing. Because it's like, no, I can never be separate because I'm God and there is no other. Everything outside of me is God. Everything within me is God. Everything that I see, ever could conceive of, ever will be conceived of by anyone is God. So there's no separation between anything. And if I want that thing, of course I can have it. It's the way I like to see things. Just a gentle suggestion. General affirmations, they're good. They're good to build up your self-concept and that foundation of manifesting from your connection to the all, from being the all. And it covers all your bases. You get to have your specific things, and also you get to have the extras, the other good things that could be implied by thinking everything is wonderful, or good things are happening, or things are always working out in my favor. Things like that are good general affirmations and sometimes feel a lot better than specifically focusing on the actual tangible desire. There's never an obligation to specifically, implicitly state your desire in the affirmation. As long as the affirmation implies your desire has been fulfilled, then the affirmation is relevant and it will work. Just continue to embody that energy of everything is good, everything is already good, everything is getting better and better continually all the time. From there, you might choose to get a little bit more specific. You might decide it actually feels really good for me to affirm about this specific thing. It lights me up. It feels good to put my conscious focus and attention and awareness on being the version of myself having this specific thing. Also, totally okay. So you might make a list. You might make a list of things that you would like to have, or you might see yourself, envision yourself as the highest version of yourself and list the kind of desires that you have now that that version of you already has. And then you might make your affirmations based off of that. You never have to affirm the same thing as somebody else. As long as your affirmation implies to you what you want, as long as it sounds good to you, as long as you like to say it, then that's the affirmation that you should use. The point is, the specific affirmations are pre-planned and they are specific to your actual desire. So get in depth with your affirmations, personalize them to feel good to you, to feel natural to you. And when you're doing a specific affirmation, it's not necessarily just that it implies the thing is done, but it's that it implies to you, to your body, to your state, to your being that the thing is done, and that there's actually some sense of relief, some sense of satisfaction, some sense of fulfillment when you say that affirmation. That actually brings about a positive emotion or helps maintain or cultivate a positive emotion for you when you say that affirmation. If it is not making you feel at least a little bit better, then there's probably another thought that you could be thinking that would serve you more. Not that it's going to be to your detriment necessarily, but I assure you, you can find a thought that feels better than whatever thought you were thinking that made you feel nothing at all. And it is likely going to serve you a lot more to think the thought that feels better, that brings a sense of relief, that calms the emotional body, that calms the nervous system, that implies to you that everything's okay, everything's working out in your favor, and you are getting the actual specific thing that you want. Whatever that means to you, whatever it is that you want to say is totally okay for you to say. You can get as specific and as detailed as you want in your affirmation. It can be as long or as short as you want, but just remember that if you're choosing to do specific affirmations, you're the one who's gonna have to say it. So as long as you like it, again, float your boat. Do what you want. This one is a fun one. So we also have askfirmations. This method has become more and more relevant recently because people have understood that the subconscious mind is a solution-based mechanism. If you give it a problem, there's always a solution. And you can ask your subconscious mind to work on things for you. Like before you go to sleep, you can say, I have this perceived problem, work on a solution for me. Or I would like to know such and such, or I would like to have an idea about such and such, things of that nature. Your subconscious mind is there to solve problems. It is privy to the information that is infinite intelligence. So if there's something you feel like you don't know, your subconscious mind does have the answer for it. Whether or not it's hidden will be based on your belief system. Whether or not you perceive there to be an actual problem will be based on your belief system, because if you automatically perceive the solution, then there would have never been a problem in the first place. But askfirmations are a very good workaround because it just sets your problem-solving mechanism going on autopilot. So instead of subconsciously replaying old thoughts, old beliefs, old structures, you give your subconscious mind a task. You make it busy. You give it something to focus on in the background. It will continue to work on that until it comes up with a solution. And that solution will be presented to you in your physical reality, or through a thought or an idea that can be played out in your physical reality that you can take inspired action on. So if you're asking your subconscious mind, or you're asking infinite intelligence or God or source or universe or whatever you believe in, if you were asking yourself, higher self even, sometimes I just like to use higher self, even though it's not really higher, I sometimes more prefer even expanded self, because all of these things and mechanisms that are seemingly outside are not really outside. They are all you, but in different aspects and different forms. So I like to think of it as not even the subconscious mind or a higher self, but expanded self, because it's able to see from the expanded viewpoint, which is why it would have all the answers to these questions that you're asking in your askfirmations. So if you're asking why or how, that problem-solving mechanism is prompted to start looking for evidence of why or how. This can work in a positive sense and in a negative sense. So using it positively, you can say things like, why do I always get what I want? Why are things always working out in the best possible way? Why do I feel so good? Why is everything always happening in my favor? Why is my SP so in love with me? Why are my relationships so harmonious and loving? Why do I have so much money in my bank account? Or if you want to use the how did I manifest that so easily? How does life just keep getting better and better? How am I so good at this? How is everything just happening so effortlessly for me? Your subconscious mind, or your problem-solving mechanism, if you're going to go the psycho-cybernetic approach, is going to start finding solutions for this problem. It's not really a problem, but because you posed a question, it's automatically prompted to start looking for answers. So that evidence is going to be presented to you. A lot of people want to know how. How is this going to happen? I don't know how. I don't know why, who, what, where, when this thing is going to manifest. It seems so logical. It seems so out of left field. I don't understand how this thing can happen for me. But you never have to understand. And just relaxing into the I don't know how, you figure it out mode. It's like, okay, subconscious mind, this is now your task. You figure it out. Why am I so wealthy? Why does my life feel so good? Why is everything happening so quickly, so effortlessly, so beautifully for me? Why is everything so wonderful? Why am I so well taken care of? If you're asking why, then you are going to get that approval, that evidence from your reality of why. Using an askfirmation can be a really good way to just prime yourself to see and expect and assume that some result is coming, that some evidence is coming, that some answer or solution is coming. It primes you to see your manifestation play out, and to be less in the controlling mode and I have to figure out step 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I have to get myself from point A to point B, and instead being in the relaxed, receptive position of, oh my God, why is this just working out for me? Oh my God, why did that just happen like that? Oh my God, why is this so easy? Can help release a lot of resistance. Now we have another one of my favorites, the affirmation rampage. I love a good rampage, and I love like a good true rampage when you are like literally marching through the house and you're like, I got this and I got that, and I'm this person and I'm this version of myself and I get to do da 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 da, and this is how my life is, and da da da, and you're just going off, and it is so on fire, and it's so like you just embodied this new sense of knowingness, and everything is just, the words are just spilling out of you and it's just coming out, and you're just speaking this positivity and these affirmations over your life. And it comes from a very empowered state. It comes from a very charged up, resonant state, and it just feels like you could just go on for ages and ages and ages talking about and delving deeper into the details of the beautiful thing that you are manifesting. And you can just let it come from that flowy state and let whatever comes out actually come out. Because when you go into it not being so stringent about these are the guidelines, this is what I have to say it like this or else it's not going to manifest, it actually really frees you up to see what is it that you actually desire. Do you actually desire this thing, or can you even take it a little bit further? Or just following that line of thought can lead you to knowing things about yourself, knowing things about your own desires that you didn't even understand fully that you wanted, but that were allowed to come out because you were in alignment, because you were following that line of thought and allowing yourself to be carried down that stream of consciousness. But if there's a lot of resistance to it initially, you might start off very generally. You just let it go to wherever it wants to go. In that way, you can kind of see maybe some hidden desires that you didn't even know were there that actually wanted to come to the surface. And if there's a good feeling that comes along with that desire coming out, then you know that that's something that's in resonance with you, and automatically something that is true and something that is available to you and something that you can have. So just assume yourself to be that person now. Just continue to speak and affirm that for yourself. So get into the flow of it, say what's on your heart, and say it with conviction. Don't settle. Don't be like, oh, that's too much. Maybe we've rampaged a little too far. Maybe now I'm asking for a little too much. It's gone a little off the rails. Like, no, if it feels good and it's coming from that empowered, like geared up, revved up state, and it just feels like it has so much energy and so much conviction and so much positive expectation behind it, let it ride. And if it feels good, let it out. There's never too much. Honestly, it's such a creative experience to do an affirmation rampage. It's such an imaginative experience, and it really does expand you and show you sometimes where your limits are, where sometimes you're thinking, oh, maybe that's too much, or oh, maybe I shouldn't go there. And it's like, no, girl, go there and see what's over there, because maybe over there is the pot of gold and you're not going to find it if you just stand over here. So keep rampaging. You just march along and you just go and see what's over there, and there's more of it where that came from as well. There really is no wrong way to do an affirmation rampage, and it can be especially powerful if your vibe is feeling a little bit low, if you're feeling kind of in that state of disempowerment and you need like a little pick-me-up. It can be really good to actually get into that feeling, actually energize yourself and get into the flow of doing an affirmation rampage and being like, no, I have conviction over my life. I have say over my life. I can say whatever the fuck I want. And you march around, and literally sometimes you are genuinely marching around speaking your affirmations over your life and saying like, no, I'm not going to settle for those thoughts or whatever. No, I'm not going to wallow anymore. I'm going to get up and I'm going to say my piece, and this is what it is, and this is my conviction, and this is my choice, and this is my truth, and this is my decision, and that's it, and it's done. And it has to be that way because I'm the only person who can say what it is. So speak it out, rampage it out, and let your word be the final say on that. And if you want to return to it, return to it. If it feels good to stay in there for as long as you want, you could be affirmation rampaging for an hour. And if it feels good the whole time and you're on your Esther Hicks high flying disc, then fly. So this one brings me kind of back to the levels of affirming. If you're in a state of being very much disempowered, of feeling like you're in a victim mindset, of feeling like things are not working out very well for you, or like you're wavering or spiraling, or just you're in a state that's maybe not the most favorable, not the most in alignment with the truth of yourself, which would be the low vibrational. High vibrational would be being in alignment with the fully embodied aspect of yourself that knows that you are God, that you are the creator, that you get to decide whatever the fuck you want. It might not be the easiest to use this technique. That's why there are levels to it. Start where you need to start, move around as you need to move around, use whatever resonates for you. But if you are a little bit more spiritually adept, if you have a deeper understanding of this knowledge, and you have a deeper level of faith behind the law, you bought the pearl of great price, you know who you are, you know how the law works, you know that you get to decide and that it is whatever you say it is, then you can do something like this, which is affirming it one and done, doing the one and done affirmation. You affirm it one time, you forget about it. If it crosses your mind, it crosses your mind as a passing, fleeting thought, something that's so obvious, something that's so handled, something that's so already done that it just floats on by. And not in a float on by like I'm indifferent to it, but I'm not attached to any outcome because I already know that I have the outcome that I want because I've already decided that it's done. So once you make a decision with a firm conviction, that's when you know that can be a one and done affirmation. That goes back to the quality of your affirmation and not necessarily the quantity of your affirmations. Because if you have a high level of conviction behind your affirmation, there really is no need to repeat over and over again. This also goes back to the Neville quote where he talks about saying the affirmation or feeling like you've touched it and the virtue has gone out of it. If you have said the affirmation, you've automatically accepted it as done, as truth, as being who you are, as being real right now, then there's no need to harp on it. There's no need to return to it. There's really no need to fret about it or fuss about it any further. It just is what it is. It just is done. It becomes obvious, natural, normal, and you move on. This can also be known as letting go and detachment. Once you say the affirmation, once you decide that something is done, you let go of it. You detach from the thought. You detach from the outcome. The virtue has gone out. It's no longer useful to desire a thing that you've already determined is yours. You don't desire the thing because you already have it. So that's why you're able to detach from it. It's not that you're detaching from the manifestation itself, it's that you're detaching from the outcome. The insistence on results, the insistence on where is it right here in physical reality. Because if you know that it's already done, then it's just already done. There's no more insistence, there's no more pushing, there's no more wanting, waiting, wavering, there's nothing. So when you make your decision, if you're gonna do a one and done, there can be no wavering. You can't go back and forth, because if you're going back and forth, then there wasn't really a decision made, was there? So you can't really say, oh, I made a decision and it didn't work, when you've been wavering and spiraling and thinking the opposite. And there's a higher quantity of those affirmations that are out of alignment with your one and done affirmation, or you're believing more into a thought, you're putting more dominance and importance on a thought that is the opposite. You're still believing more into the old story than you believe into your new decision. So once your decision is a true decision, once you determine that it's truth, once you determine that that is the only possibility, it's the only outcome, it's the only truth, it's the only thing that's real, then that is one and done. There needs to be nothing else said, there needs to be nothing else done. It just is what it is. You go about life embodying the knowing that it's already done, and you see yourself in your life in the light of that new conception. You choose to see things righteously from here on out. So that means everything that you see is now based on the implication that whatever that desire is already done. So for example, if your one and done affirmation is that you always get everything you want, and then you go to a restaurant and they get your order wrong, and then you automatically imply, well, oh, this always happens, especially when I go to this restaurant and that waiter, and I'm gonna talk to the manager and da-da-da-da, instead of being like, I already know that I always get what I want. This must have some positive implication for me. This must be a good thing in some way, shape, or form. And you just politely call the waiter back and tell the waiter, hey, this is not what I ordered. I actually can't have this thing, or I don't prefer this dish, or I prefer it without this or that thing. Would you mind remaking my meal? And they remake your meal and you get extra dessert, or they say it's on the house, or you get some kind of voucher or a free something, or there is some other positive result from that circumstance, which would not have been the case had you said, oh, I always get what I want, and then went back to the feeling state of, oh, well, I guess I don't always get what I want, because that would mean you are not very firm in your conviction. But by staying firm in your conviction, even if you perceive a reality or a circumstance to be not as you would prefer it to be, if you still stick with your initial conviction, your initial decision that everything is the way you want it to be, then everything has to turn out to be in alignment with that preference, with that decision, as long as you maintain it and as long as you remain faithful to it. I will say that now a lot of the times these one and done affirmations are the things that manifest for me instantly, like within matters of minutes or hours or within the same day. These throwaway thoughts, the oh yeah, of course, the oh, I prefer it to be this way, or oh yeah, that thing's handled, and just leave it and you just forget about it. And then all of a sudden, an hour later, somebody's like, oh yeah, so-and-so said this, and that thing's gonna be handled. And I'm like, oh yeah, bet. And then you just move on. It has such a low level of importance. And by that, I mean you have such a low insistence on it must be this way, because you know if something is obviously a certain way, there's no need to insist that it be that way, because it's always that way, always has been that way, always is going to be that way until your preference changes. And it also frees up your mental energy and your mental capacity as well. You could be thinking about 50 billion other things and manifesting very effortlessly, because you have such a low level of insistence that it be a certain way, because you know that it already is that way. So there's no need to insist. There's no need to push. You can persist without insisting. Insisting implies a level of franticness, a level of lacking something or needing something or anticipating something or waiting for something that you do not already have. So you don't condition it, you don't go into the how, you don't overthink it, you just go straight from desire to fulfillment. If it's not feeling like a one and done is doing it for you, if you don't feel satisfied, if you don't feel like the virtue has gone out of you, then use a different technique. It's not for everything that it's always instantly just one and done and oh, I never have to think about that thing again. The more that you play with it and the more you start to trust yourself in it and the more faith that you build in it, the more of those things will be that simple. But it's not always the case. And sometimes things do need to be revisited. Sometimes things come up and it's like, oh, this might need a little bit of a deeper dive. You might need to look into this a little bit further before we're ready to just wipe our hands clean of it. And that is totally okay too. But this is an available option and it doesn't have to be a hard option at all. That's literally the opposite of what the goal of this technique is. Specifically, doing a one and done affirmation is the most effortless way that you could go about it, and it's the most natural way that you could go about it. So these last three methods of autosuggestion or affirmation techniques, if you will, I'm gonna kind of fly through because I feel like they're pretty self-explanatory. They're options. These are more of like beginner tools or support tools, or if you need them, if you think it's fun, if you think it's relevant, totally available for you to use. So we have subliminals. Subliminals are affirmations that are underneath some kind of sound. Usually it's like music or rain sounds or something like that, or maybe binaural beats. And the affirmations are turned down so that they're not audible by the conscious mind, but they go straight to the subconscious mind. So they kind of bypass the conscious barrier and go straight to the subconscious, which is kind of like when we think about the key point affirming. You want to kind of support your subconscious mind in the way of working with it when it's the most malleable, or working with it in ways that don't feel like you're trying to infiltrate your subconscious or make it think a certain way or force it to be brainwashed or work differently, because that's when you can kind of maybe get opposite results, a little bit of resistance, a little bit of stickiness. But just doing a subliminal, not even being able to consciously hear the affirmations and just allowing them to go straight to the subconscious. I will say, as I've been in the kind of manifestation, spiritual space for a while, and a long time ago, at the very beginning of my journey, I used to use subliminals a lot. There were a lot of sketchy instances of people putting things in subliminals that were not completely mutually beneficial for everybody, not the best intentions. So I would advise that if you are going to use subliminals, that you make your own. They're not very hard to make, like record your affirmations on voice memo, throw them in iMovie, throw an MP3, nice soundtrack or song over it, and lower the volume of your affirmations to where you can't hear them. I would just suggest that you make them yourself so that you know what's in them for sure, or that you just get them from a trusted source. It's good for background listening. If you're just not going to be doing anything anyways, or if it doesn't bother you, why not? Just throw them on. And some people genuinely manifest just using subliminals, and that's a-okay. And then we have guided affirmations, kind of like repeat after me type videos, where somebody is saying the affirmation and they give you the space to either repeat it out loud or repeat it internally, or kind of like just an affirmation track that you can follow along with. Those are good. Those are on YouTube in abundance. Those affirmation tracks could also be used as a really good tool for self-hypnosis. The same as with everything else. You could also make your own affirmation tracks. Like if you're going to record your own affirmations, you can leave space to repeat them back to yourself. But if you're going to find guided affirmations on YouTube, as long as you resonate with them and they sound good and they help you focus, they relax you, they do for you whatever it is you want them to do for you, then go for it. Absolutely no problem. And it doesn't matter if the person is using the I am format or the you are format. Ultimately, decide that it's going to work. If it's enjoyable for you and if you like doing it, then just decide that's a technique that works for you. We've come to our last method of autosuggestion. The last one we're going to talk about in this video is sleep tracks. I've talked about sleep tracks a little bit before, and like robotic affirmations. My views on them have changed a little bit over time. So sleep tracks are kind of in the same vein as guided affirmations or subliminals. The affirmations on a sleep track may or may not be audible. It might be a subliminal sleep track, or you might be able to audibly hear the person saying the affirmations. They're usually extended, like 8 hours or 10 hours or something like that. And the goal is to sleep with it on to penetrate the subconscious mind. Now, we talked about key point affirming, that the state akin to sleep is a really good time to impress your subconscious mind with whatever thoughts that you want to manifest. My way of thinking about it is this: if you hit that key point, not state of sleep, but the state akin to sleep, which just means the drowsy state, the state right before you go to sleep, or the state when you're waking up, then that is more than enough to impress your subconscious mind. You don't necessarily have to have a track going on the whole night long. Your subconscious mind is doing a lot of work while you're asleep. It's integrating the memories from the day, it's sorting information, discarding things that are no longer useful. So it is busy, but like I said, your subconscious mind is never asleep. So if you want to and you find it beneficial to use a sleep track and have it on all night long, you can totally do that. People have mixed results with leaving them on all night. Some people say it has a negative effect. Now that might have a lot less to do with sleep tracks themselves and more to do with whatever's being said in the affirmation and the level of resistance that that person has to whatever is being said, and the fact that all of that is happening on a subconscious level. So it's a little bit harder to monitor as opposed to doing something like a mental diet, when you can see the kind of back and forth between the subconscious thought and the conscious thought, which might be where the resistance or the negative feeling or the opposing circumstances are coming from when somebody is saying having a sleep track on all night is giving them the opposite results, or that they had some kind of negative impact. I don't necessarily think that it's bad at all. If you can sleep with it on and if it's working well for you and if you're getting results, then you should absolutely do that. And they also have really nice ones that are like rain sounds. I love rain sounds. I love just rain storms in general. Like I said, it's not completely and totally necessary to have it on all night. You can set a sleep timer if you want to and just have it play until you fall asleep and then be done with it. Or you can play it all night long. Again, float your boat. It doesn't really matter. Decide it's gonna work. The last note that I'll say on this is that I know a lot of people say that their specific reasoning for using something like a sleep tape is that they want to target deeply integrated subconscious beliefs. But I think I've made it clear that I don't necessarily think that it's the effort, the repetition, or the length of time that you're doing or using a technique that makes it effective, but it is the intention and the conviction of your choice and your will to remain faithful to it and allow that to be your reality, allow that to be truth, to accept it as real and true for you, and to integrate it. Your willingness and your allowingness to let something happen for you. Your ability to give yourself permission to be, do, and have whatever it is you want to be, do, or have can have a far greater effect on whatever beliefs you're trying to shift, no matter how deeply you think they're ingrained, as opposed to persistently working on something or trying to eliminate a negative belief through some kind of long drawn out process. All of these ways have their uses, their benefits, their possible downfalls, and different things are going to work for different people at different times, for different situations and different circumstances, and that's okay. The most important thing is that you listen to yourself, that you honor yourself, that you're true to yourself. To me, ultimately, is that you cultivate a higher sense of well-being, or that you are able to maintain your sense of well-being throughout the process that you're doing, that it's not taking away from your life, that it doesn't feel like a burden to affirm, that it doesn't feel so much like a technique, even though these are all techniques. But the more natural it becomes to you is when it stops being a technique and it starts just being the truth. The more natural that it becomes to you, the quicker that it manifests, and the more easily and effortlessly that it's going to do so. Like with everything I say, this is just my experience, it's just my perspective, and everyone will have their own, and everyone will have their own story to tell and the things that give them the most results. I mean, this video is pretty long. I could have gone way deeper in depth. I have places in my notes that I didn't even dive into because it was just getting too long. I know you're used to me yapping your ear off, but come on, we have to set the limit somewhere. But I just wanted to do as comprehensive of a deep dive as I could in one sit down, or two sit downs since I split it into two parts, to kind of weed out some of the more nuanced questions about how to go about using affirmations as a technique. So even though you are thinking thoughts and therefore affirming anyway, based on your relevance to the thought, the importance of the thought, whether or not you believe the thought is true, there are ways to think more consciously and actually affirm on purpose, or use it as a technique on purpose that is going to benefit you and make your experience a lot more smooth. My intention behind doing this video is that you will have some kind of starting point, a guide to see where you fit in terms of implementing affirmations as a technique, how to use affirmations to your benefit in a way that feels good, in a way that's actually going to get you the results that you want to see, and in a way that you are not frustrated with manifestation or feeling like you are disempowered or that things are not working for you, or just wondering why there's a disconnect between what you want and what you have currently, or who you want to be and who you are being currently. Whether it's the least possible effort or the most possible effort, if that's the journey that you choose for yourself and that feels relevant to you, then that is what it is. But whatever you decide to do, at least let it be to your benefit and decide that it's worthwhile and that it's going to work for you. And it will. I feel like it's only right that Neville closes us out as well. This is from Spirit Feeling the Coin of Heaven. Construct a sentence which implies the fulfillment of your aims, such as I have a large, steady, dependable income, consistent with integrity and mutual benefit, or I am happily married, I am wanted, I am contributing to the good of the world, and repeat such a sentence over and over until you are inwardly affected by it. Our inner speech represents in various ways the world we live in. In the beginning was the word, John 1:1. So yeah, Neville did say repeat. Repeat until you are inwardly affected by it, which means until it makes you feel good. And when it stops making you feel good, let's move on. Let's do something else, okay? Like, we're all gonna move on with our lives right now because the video is over. I need to go. We've been sitting here so long. I hope you had snacks and drinks and took breaks and paused if you need to, and maybe pen and paper. Maybe you should have said that at the beginning, but that's okay. It's time to go. The curtains are closing. Get out. You need to leave. Bye. Just kidding. All right, you guys, that's gonna do it for me today. I intend this message serves you well, and I'd love to hear your thoughts about it in the comments. If you're interested in working with me or checking out my other platforms, all that information will be in the description box below. And other than that, I love you all so much. Thank you for being here, and I'll see you next time. Bye.